È una lunga frequentazione quella di Thomas Ostermeier con la Biennale di Venezia, è venuto nel 99, poi nel 2010, 2011, Leone d'Oro con un laboratorio spettacolo su Amleto e poi ancora prima, nel 2013, scusate, ancora con il bellissimo, lo ricorderete, Nemico del Popolo. Una frequentazione che ci ha spinto a numerosi incontri, a numerose conversazioni e ha lasciato ogni volta delle tracce notevolissime grazie a questo teatro che ha creato, che ha saputo creare, un teatro che comunque costringe a prendere posizione, comunque costringe a pensare, lo abbiamo visto anche naturalmente ieri sera con grande piacere nel Matrimonio di Maria Brown. Matrimonio di Maria Brown è uno spettacolo nato nel 2007, oggi è ripreso, è tornato in scena nel 2014 per Avignone, cambiato grazie soprattutto alla presenza degli attori. Allora, immediatamente le domande. La prima, ovviamente, l'incontro con il cinema di Fassbinder. Perché la scelta di questa particolare sceneggiatura, di questo particolare film, Il matrimonio di Maria Brown?
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to this, and thank you for the interest in my work. And thank you for having me again here at the Biennale, which is for me always a pleasure, a big pleasure, big honor, and also every time a lot of work, because Alex, who tries to hide behind the column over there, achieves every edition to convince me to do a workshop, which before it starts for me is always a high pressure, but then when I do it I enjoy a lot. So thanks for that also. Talking of Fassbinder, I will tell you a story which, even so you won't believe it, is a nice story. It will not sound believable, but it's true. I have not seen the movie. I choose to put this movie on stage because of a love story. I had a very beautiful love story with a Norwegian woman for years, and we came never together because she lived in Oslo and I lived in Berlin. And yeah, thank you. And at a certain moment we decided that we cannot go on because we are too far from each other. And then one night, after we split up, half a year later, she called me and she said she just saw a movie which made her cry, and because this movie is so close to our story and I should put it on stage. And that was the marriage of Maria Braun. And so I got hold of the script, and I decided not to watch it before I put it on stage. And this is why I put this play on stage. It's a true story. Yeah, and it's of course there were other reasons involved. I'm always, when people ask me to talk about Fassbinder or what Fassbinder means to a German director, of course, Fassbinder, especially for every German director, is a big problem, is a scandal, because how can you have a life as a German director after Fassbinder. It's not possible. It's like a big Mount Everest, while the rest is only a little hill in the landscape. And it is very challenging and depressing at the same time. Not only the fact that in such a short life he has written theater history, but only and more history of cinema, of German cinema, of post-war cinema, and there were years where he in 1 year did shoot 3 movies. No? And nowadays a movie director can be happy if he shoots every 3rd year a movie. And even theater directors can be happy when they achieve to have 3 productions a year. But Fassbinder, at a certain moment of his life, he had, after he did a movie, he had to do a new one because he was so much in debt, financial debts, that in order to pay the debts, he had to start a new movie, and with the money, with the subvention for the new movie, he paid the debts of the old movie. And so he was forced to go on and go on. And especially on this movie, it's very funny because the script is not written by himself. The script happened that, this is the story, that during shooting another movie in the Bavaria Film Studios in Munich, in his lunch break in the canteen of the Bavarian Film Studios, he met Peter Mertesheimer and Pierre Fröhlich, the couple who wrote the script, and he told them the story in his lunch break. And so that they can go home and write the movie after his idea. So he was constantly creating 2 or 3 things at the same time. The special interest, of course, especially in this subject or material or script, is of course German post-war history. The movie is part of the trilogy of Fassbinder, which is called the BRD trilogy, so the trilogy about the Federal Republic of Germany. So what was West Germany? And he examined this in 3 parts. Lili Marleen and Veronika Voss are the 2 other movies. And the big achievement of Fassbinder is, of course, that he mixes private life with historical background. So it's not a didactic way of telling something about the German history, but it is a very personal story of Maria Braun, who at a certain point tries to have a life in post-war Germany. And after the Second World War, there was a period of time, the famous Trümmerfrauen, so the women who rebuilt Germany out of the ruins, the women of the ruins, because there was a lack of men. They were either in prisoners of war, or they were killed, the women had to build Germany. Of course, this is an interesting historical moment for somebody like Fassbinder, that in this completely male German fascist society, all of a sudden the women who were during fascism at home, in the kitchen, taking care of the children, were forced by historical events to be in a complete different role all of a sudden, to be the ones who build a country. And this responsibility and this work they did, of course, provided them with a lot of self-confidence and with maybe even more self-confidence and power, like a lot of younger women do have today. They could be proud of having built up Germany again, and they had to take over in the family at home the role of the boss of the family, which of course created a complete different freedom and independence. And Fassbinder is interested how this was twisted, how this was put back again. So he makes a connection between this moment of complete freedom for women, or independency, or empowerment, and the economic wealth, the resurrection of economic Germany. And he brings these two lines together and says, so in the moment which was in the mythology of Germany resurrecting, which was a football championship in Bern, where they became world champions, which was for a lot of Germans a moment where they all of a sudden felt again equal to other nations, and again part of the civilized world. For Fassbinder, this was the end of this period of hope. It was the resurrection and the implosion at the same time. I find this very smart to bring this moment of the World Championship together with the end of the history of Hermann and Maria. And I think now, having seen the film, I think the show even shows more why the house is exploding in the end. Because in the film you tend to not understand what's really happening. What's really happening is that behind the back of Maria Braun, her destiny is decided by the two men. The industrial French boss of the company, and Hermann Braun, the soldier. They meet in the prison, and he says, okay, if as long as I'm not dead, you leave the woman to me, you get half of the heritage. And this is, of course, also a metaphor how behind the back of that woman who seemingly is completely autonomous and independent, men take over power again. And this is of course a metaphor on what happened in post-war Germany. And of course, having presented the show just recently for 2 weeks in France and Paris before we came here, and now presenting it here in Venice, of course, when you watch the performance in nowadays Europe, it's echoing very strong with the contemporary situation of Germany and Europe. You know? In one moment, she says in the script, Maria says, it's a bad time for feelings. So it's a world which, like another famous title of Fassbinder, where he says, Liebe ist kälter als der Tod, love is colder than death. It's a time where the economical prosperity and the economic situation is fundamental for the relationships of the people, and it's there where they find their happiness in economic prosperity. And this is how the gap which was left behind by fascism. And that's why I bring in the beginning of the show, I bring these pictures which are not in the movie of Fassbinder, and the love letters. The love letters, Fassbinder couldn't know them, because these love letters, which are read in the beginning of the show, are love letters which were published the 2002, I think. They were the archives were opened, and we found in American archives in New York, there were found these love letters, a lot of love letters of hundreds of women all over Germany who were in love with Adolf Hitler, and they sent private love letters to him. And so when the movie was shot, these letters were not known. And so that's why I introduced them, because at the time when the movie was done in 1978, post-war Germany was much more present to the audience. Now I thought we should have a moment in the beginning, before the story starts, where we kind of make the audience understand what kind of mass hysteria was going on around Hitler. That's why I introduced these letters, to show the madness, and also the pictures of the women, you know, who were crazily and hysterical when they met on public occasions Hitler, and were completely fine with the role model. At least 90% were fine with the role model which was provided by fascism, which was the woman at home, the mother, the German mother, with a lot of children, taking care of the household, of the kitchen, and so on. So it is not only that the men were perpetrators in German fascism, but also the women were playing their part. And I think Fassbinder chose deliberately the name of Braun, because it is the last name of Eva Braun, who was the wife of Hitler, who married to Hitler just before he killed himself. But also the color of brown, which is the color of the Nazis in Germany. So he wanted to show already by the name where this woman comes from, you know, what a incredible power of self-neglecting she has with this history behind, to then replace this trauma by becoming economically strong and independent and successful in this world of man, in this world of industry, of commerce, of power. And by this effort and by putting all your energy in this, you could forget about the horror and the guilt. So it's about trying to get rid of all this by putting maybe the same amount of energy and of German perfectionism, which was first put to make fascism function, is now put into economy to make this function. But neither during fascism nor post-war Germany, they were thinking about themselves and about their emotional part in the story, their emotional lack of empathy, and the problem German society suffers not only since fascism, but where did fascism come from? It has also to do with a lot of family values and how family function in Germany before fascism. There's this beautiful movie by Michael Haneke, The White Ribbon, where, from my point of view, he achieves to analyze and to understand in what kind of universe fascism could breed. And I think already there is an incredible emotional lack in German society. And always this lack is replaced by a kind of ideology. Is it fascism on the one hand, or is it later on economical growth and economical success and industrial success and performance of power through economy? And it creates an emotional landscape which is like this ice painting by Caspar David Friedrich, this Eismeer. You know? So yeah, and that's why I was interested in this material, because it is a kind of research on German soul.
Ci ha raccontato l'inserimento drammaturgico di queste lettere nel lavoro con i dramaturg Julia Lochte e Florian Porcheddu. Come è cambiata, come si è arricchita, come avete affrontato la sceneggiatura, trattandola come un classico, trattandola come un testo, trattandola come un contemporaneo su cui intervenire?
Yeah, I did what I quite often do. I did a kind of a research lab with students, so with directing students, and I put the script, I cut it into 5 pieces, and I gave every part to one directing student and provided them with actors, and then they put the whole script on stage. And they had, each of them had a full distribution, a full cast. And I watched it, and then I said, that's not the way you can do it. That's not the way you can make work this scenario, which is for cinema, which is written for cinema. So while watching the performance, I said, okay, this guy you can double, this you can double, this you can double. And I tried to figure out a way to do the play with only one female actress in the middle, and then as less characters, actors around her. And of course, also for the reason why I explained before about the content, that behind the back of this one woman, the men are dividing again the country amongst them. I wanted to have one woman and only men around who kind of share the characters and the story and also kind of perform as roles for her in order to then take over the power and erase her. And so I ended up with a version which took a lot of time to figure out completely how this might work. And of course, it's also a way of dealing with the problem that when you do a film script, you have a lot of scenes and quick scene changes. And in these quick scene changes, also quick changes of set and of the place where it is performed. So this was a double challenge. There was a challenge for the set design, and it was a challenge for distribution or costume design. So we decided that when a new character appears and it's performed by the same actor, we don't put him behind the curtain with a long makeup and wig and new costume, but to have very little changes so that the cutting, the editing of the movie is the same on stage. The scene is ended, the next scene without interruption is performed. And this was, of course, also a big challenge for the set. And I remember very well at that time the set designer I was working with, and still working with her. She was living in Paris, and we did the set in Paris. And it took us a very long time to develop this set, because how to approach it, how to have something which is at a time abstract and concrete at the same time, providing us with all possibilities, but not too narrow at the same time. So she suggested at a certain point this strange waiting room hall, which can be like the smoking lounge of a grand hotel, or a waiting lounge, or maybe even a train station waiting lounge in the 50s. But then also an office of the guy, also the living room from the family at home, and so on. And I think the beauty of the show is that it is very challenging and demanding for the spectator to have its own fantasy. To, okay, now we are here. When he puts a coat like this is a doctor. And So this is what Brecht called the co-fabulierende Zuschauer. So the spectator who has his own fantasy working while watching. And I think this, with these little changes and this space, spectator can enjoy also to have its own idea, and it's like a puzzle a little bit, which the spectator has to put together.
E anche la regia ha un ritmo di montaggio molto veloce. È cambiato il suo approccio avendo a che fare con una sceneggiatura, l'approccio registico, avendo a che fare con una sceneggiatura rispetto a un testo classico.
Well, it's true that as a director, I'm obsessed with rhythm and obsessed with speed or not speed, or changing of very speedy parts and very slow parts. I think this moment in the end, the restaurant scene, with his widespread timing, or this broad timing, is only working because before you have quite speedy scene changes or quick scene changes. And I enjoyed it a lot, and every time watching it I tell myself maybe I should do one more time a movie on stage, which I didn't do since, because it is very enjoyable, or I enjoy it a lot to install this mechanism of there's something happening here, and out of this something else is happening, and it's like this constant chain of actions, this constant rhythm, which doesn't give the spectator a moment of nothing's happening or nothing's going on, but it's constantly metamorphose, constantly developing one out of the other. This you can, either you agree with a writer to write something like this, or you do another film scenario, and then you can work like this. But I personally love this challenge of how can it possibly be that in 1 second you switch from a train station to a hospital with the same cast without any changing of the stage, any changing of costume, but just like this. That is for me, of course, a challenge, but at the same time beautiful to do this.
Domande del pubblico, naturalmente ce ne saranno molte, avete spazio e tempo a disposizione. Ce n'è già subito una, eccola qui.
Thank you. You are probably not an Everest, but you are certainly bigger than a Monte Bianco. That said, I have a personal question for you.
But I'm always dreaming of Mount Everest. It's so depressing.
Okay. You spoke about Nazism, and you said always fascism. Why you prefer to use the word fascism?
I can also say Nazism, but in English, in German I would say Nazi Deutschland. Mm. This is not a deliberate choice.
I see. I was afraid of trying to reduce the Nazism to the level of the big European fascism.
No. No worry, this was not a historical remark.
Thank you. Excuse me.
It was a lack of consciousness in choosing my words.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Salve. All'inizio cadono delle sedie. Quando arriva il marito e trova Maria insieme all'americano, cadono delle sedie. Io ci ho visto un omaggio, non so quanto voluto, quanto quanto ho scelto un omaggio a Pina Bausch, a Caffè Müller. E poi un'altra considerazione, questa è una difesa della mia categoria. In un passaggio lei fa dire al reporter: io sono un giornalista, non ho nessuna opinione. Ecco, lei che opinione ha della stampa e in che relazione è con la critica giornalistica, con i giornalisti teatrali italiani in questo caso e anche europei? Grazie.
Actually, this sentence is original Fassbinder, or originally in the script. I'm a journalist, I don't have any opinion. I don't know if it's still true. Sometimes I do believe that the journalists nowadays, they have an opinion. Problem is, it's the wrong opinion. You know? It's even worse. I think medias are a lot influencing our society. I had the chance of meeting Bourdieu before he died, and we invited Bourdieu several times to Schaubühne and also to the Baracke, which I was running before. And before he died, Pierre Bourdieu was very much concerned about the power of journalists. He said that in our Western societies, journalists became like a fourth power. You have the three powers in democracy, and he had the feeling that the media now became a fourth power. But the problem is that they are not controlled, because the three other powers are depending on each other and thus controlling each other. But the media is like a kind of, even like a kind of a hydra with a lot of heads, become bigger and bigger without self-consciousness, without the knowledge of the power they have. And I think this is probably my remark on what you were saying about journalism in Europe at the moment. When you follow up the medias in Germany, how they're dealing with the so-called crisis in Greece, then you cannot say they don't have an opinion, but you have to say they have the wrong opinion. You know? Because the whole media in Germany are telling the story of the lazy Greek who are depending on our money. And it's a wrong story. And it's of course very charming to the German voters to hear this. Very flattering, but it's first of all, it's not true, and secondly, it is creating a kind of hysteria in Europe, which puts Europe, or this kind of Europe, very much into question. And then on the next day, you have a talk show on German television where everybody sits concerned and says, oh, what's going on with our Europe? Are we losing it? How can it happen? And everybody plays innocent, you know, as if they were not part of destroying Europe. They are a big part in that, and they should be the storytellers of the other narration, you know, because the narration we get from Schäuble and Merkel is anyway there. They should be the counterpoint of this narration. They are not. And so, again, you can see that I don't share anymore this opinion that journalists don't have an opinion. They have, and they are making politics.
Altre domande? Una, due.
Are you a journalist?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but I have no opinion about that.
Of course, this is not true for people present, only for the others.
Of course.
Thank you very much for your play. I had two questions. One is about the use of video, which I found really interesting. So if you'd like to tell us a bit about that. Secondly, I was wondering how you chose the cast for this play and more generally how you choose the members of your cast.
And thanks for this praise. I'm not so proud of the video or the use of video in this special production. We did better after this, and I think in other productions the use of video is much better developed. The only thing which was important to me is when using screened images in a scenario of Fassbinder, which was a movie, that they are the farthest away from images of the film. And that's why we deliberately choose to project images where you can see it's on stage crafted. You know, like the house which is turning and screened, where you really can see this is a simple house children play with, you know. So it should be really artificial. That was one thing. The other thing where these video pictures which were provided by the video artist, where he did this editing of 50s commercials from television, which he edited in a fascinating way, showing this empty consumerism. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Then concerning the casting, you have to know Schaubühne is a company with an ensemble of permanent actors. So I do always try, and the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, this was always the case, to work with members of the company. So to have a very strong company of actors who are all in a way protagonists, all very skilled and strong personalities, and then hopefully be able to cast every performance with members of the company. In this case, it worked out, but it was again a choose. The choice was where the actors, not 100% the age of the actors, for example, which was, for example, in the case of Moritz Gottwald, the young guy, he is probably a little bit too young to perform the roles he does, but he is talented enough to perform all these roles. So I'm always going more for the talent than for the type casting. And they are, but this is part of the spirit of our company. They are very playful. They love to be on stage. They love to have crazy ideas. They love to disguise in a woman. They love to be challenged by performing 4 or 5 different characters in one go. And this is the spirit of the company, that it's really a very theatrical, playful spirit.
Un'altra domanda c'era
Sì, la mia domanda è su uno spettacolo precedente che è Un nemico del popolo. In questo spettacolo c'è un inserto del Comité National Insurrection qui vient e volevo sapere cosa...
C'est pas le comité national, c'est le comité invisible.
Comité Invisible, il contrario.
Il contrario.
Qual è la sua concezione dell'anarchia come posizione antipolitica o in generale perché ha scelto proprio questo testo e qual è il rapporto con le istituzioni che si ha in questo caso? Perché scegliere un testo anarchico all'interno di uno spettacolo teatrale che quindi inevitabilmente ha dei rapporti con le istituzioni? Grazie.
But might be a bit difficult for the people who haven't seen the show, no? Yeah, but I can try to answer this briefly. So there's this enemy of the people, and in the middle of the show there is a text where he addresses a town hall meeting where he not talks about the injustice that he cannot publish his article on the rotten water, but he talks about the fact that in his point of view the whole society is rotten. And then we introduced a text, part of a text which is called the upcoming insurrection, l'insurrection qui vient, by a French committee, Invisible, it's called. They published the text anonymously in the internet, and everybody can use it for its own purpose. I think this text is pretty close to the speech Stockmann is giving in the town hall meeting in the original version of the play. Of course, I was looking for something explicit nowadays, and I was looking because our town hall meeting in the play is in front of the audience, so the audience becomes the town hall. I wanted to have something which is directly speaking to nowadays audience. And this text is full of rage, full of anger, and full of very sharp and critical remarks on contemporary society. And it was a very important text for the radical left in Germany and probably in a lot of other European countries. So I wanted to have this heard in a German theater, but also in all theaters where we go with this show. And I'm personally not 100% sharing the opinion of this text. For me, the play was more about a society, a democratic society, who is not listening to the excluded, risks that the excluded take the way to radicalization, either left or right wing. And I think in this text, the radical left meets part of the radical right. And this is a problem in a lot of radical lefty thinking in Europe, even in Italy. We are talking about Agamben here, where sometimes I'm not sure for which side he's talking. So this is what I wanted to talk about with this text. That it's not so much a manifesto of myself, but it is a portrait of nowadays democracy who completely closes down to participation because of the profit of economy. We are not transparent anymore to the voices which are criticizing or the voices of the excluded. And when that happens, part of the excluded and the witty ones, or the themselves considering clever ones, risk to go in the wrong direction. And this text is also, in parts of it, wrong, in my view. For example, in his anti-modernism, it is a text who is completely in a bad tradition of history of intellectuals in 20th century, in a bad way anti-modernistic. It's praising the life of small communities, villages. I grew up in a village. I'm so happy to have left it behind. I'm so happy to live in a big city, and I'm so happy that not all the neighbors know what's going on at home in my family life. You know, I love being in a big, anonymous city. So in this point, I'm not sharing at all the view of this text. It's also anti-modernistic in its way. It is not liking technology. Again, something which you can find in both radical left and radical right anti-technology ideology. I do not share this. And I do not share in this text the anti-democratic spirit. So for me, it's not a manifesto. For me, it is a text which is at the same time explicit and sharp and angry and full of rage, but then also going too far. And my biggest pleasure is presenting this text in front of a Berlin bourgeois audience, and then when you ask the audience who shares the opinion, 80% raise their arm. This is completely contradictory, you know. Half of them are voting Social Democrats and Green Party of our audience, and all of a sudden they raise their arm for a text who wants to get rid of parliamentarian democracy. This is completely twisted, so it's more a vicious game with the audience, pushing themselves to the borders of their political consciousness.
Ma io vorrei ritornare al discorso dei media nella nostra società, perché mi viene in mente una frase di Mark Twain quando dice che il giornalista sa distinguere il vero dal falso, ma pubblica il falso. Questo è molto importante perché credo che dai media non possa venire fuori una memoria. Però nel suo caso io credo che lei non stia indagando solo sulla memoria tedesca, ma stia indagando sull'identità. Qual è la relazione fra memoria e identità? Questa è la prima domanda. La seconda, qual era la relazione fra fare cinema e fare teatro, soprattutto nell'esperimento che lei ha fatto in questo spettacolo relativo al montaggio? Perché ci pensi, se uno fa cinema, le prove si debbono fare durante le riprese. Poi è importante il montaggio perché non c'è un'unità di tempo nel fare cinema. Invece nel caso del teatro si fanno prove, ma dopo c'è un'unità di esposizione che ha a che fare sempre con il montaggio. Qual è il ruolo del montaggio sia nel cinema che nel teatro?
Okay. If I understood right, you were asking about editing on stage and editing in cinema. Yeah? Yeah, well, there's this famous phrase of, who was it again? I think Truffaut was it, who said that cinema is a dictatorial view and theater is a democratic view. in cinema, the director in the editing room decides for you what to look at. So he is, in a dictatorial way, leading the view of the spectator. Because he decides, at this very moment, I have a close-up of the hand, in the next moment, I have a close-up of the face of this character, and so on. So, of course, when I was talking about the editing for Maria Braun, it was not about that. My editing is the sequence of the chain of scenes. So how to have this quick scene changes. And then it stays completely theatrical, because each scene itself, you decide, am I looking to Maria Braun or am I looking to Hermann, and so on. So it's a mixture between that, but at the same time, it could have also been a play text written in this way. So it's more about the challenge of how do I deal with the fact that you have very short scenes in a short amount of time, a lot of scenes in different spots, outside, inside, railway station, living room, nursery, what else? So this is the challenge, and this is a theatrical challenge. But talking of the editing, I have a big tendency to go also to shoot some movies. There is a big, let's say, desire for that. But at the same time, I also do love a lot the fact that in a rehearsal room, everybody's participating, much more of freedom is happening, and it's a more open process, in my point of view. About memory and identity, I'm not getting into this because this is so complex. I just tell you one anecdote. I once was asked to do a play in Japan, and then I went with Marius von Meinburg, the writer, and we wanted to do a play written, commissioned for the Japanese. And we came there, and then we told the story which we want to tell on stage. We said, yeah, we want to have a Western European character who, by being confronted with Japanese culture, completely loses track and at a certain moment loses its own identity, does not know who he is anymore. And then this nice gentleman from the Setagaya Theater in Tokyo, in Japan, told us, you know, there is no word for identity in Japanese. It simply does not exist, this conception of identity.
Buonasera. Una domanda a cui potrà rispondere in poche parole, spero. Una volta un amico, uscendo da teatro, dopo aver visto un grande classico, mi disse: avrei preferito leggerlo che vederlo. E io non ho visto il film, ma ieri, mentre vedevo lo spettacolo, mi chiedevo se avrei preferito vederlo al cinema o vederlo a teatro, per una specie di, non so come chiamarla, di patina cinematografica che mi impediva delle volte di entrare all'interno di ciò che stava accadendo, delle emozioni dei personaggi e dell'azione. Lei in parte l'ha già spiegato, però se in poche parole può dirmi perché una persona dovrebbe scegliere, se dovesse scegliere, di andare a vedere questo testo a teatro piuttosto che andare a vederlo al cinema.
Yeah, you know, I could easily reply to this question in saying, and this may sound arrogant, but there is a truth to it. I'm making theater for myself. It's a research on me in Germany today, and I want to find out about myself. Part of the research was this moment which I was interested in, this collision between this love story and the historical background. It was a purely personal drive which made me putting this play on stage. And I can tell you, we did this in 2007. Now we have 2015. 8 years later, a lot of people, spectators, audience everywhere in the world shares this interest for my research. So I would never tell anybody why he should come and see this instead of watching the movie. I would always recommend the movie, always. But for those who share my passion, I'm happy to share the auditorium with them. They are even allowed to sit beside me, you know, and watch together with me. But the show is for me.
Grazie a Thomas Ostermeier. Thank you. Grazie a voi. A domani.